Hi, I'm Mariah Gallegos and welcome to my TED Talk. Today we will be discussing the profound relationship between interior design and mental well-being. The question that has driven this research is how can we design interior spaces to have a positive impact on mental well-being? I want you to think about your home for a moment, not just the walls and furniture, but how it feels to be there. Our homes are the most significant aspects of our lives. It's where we keep our loved ones safe, it's where we can hide away from the world when we need to, but most importantly, our homes are where we express ourselves, and we have a profound connection to them. But with that comes a huge issue. When a room is not created with the intent to support healthy mental well-being, the people who are introduced to the space will be uncomfortable. Unfortunately, great interior design often goes unnoticed, but that's kind of part of its magic. However, when something's wrong with the space, it's all we can think about. The lighting's harsh, the room feels cluttered, the colors are overwhelming, you can't put your finger on it, you just know you don't feel good there. Think of it like this. If you've ever had an eyelash in your eye, you know that at first you may not notice it, but as time goes on, it starts to become more and more of a bother, until eventually it consumes your thoughts. However, no one's been sitting in class and just thought, wow, I'm really lucky to not have something in my eye right now. That eyelash is a representation of the small things in our environment that we don't always notice until they become a problem. So now that we understand how interior spaces can impact our mental health, let's dig into how and why that happens. And more importantly, how we can design spaces that support us instead of draining us. First, let's discuss what interior design is and why it matters. Interior design is the art of using interior decorations to create a room or building that's visually appealing. But its meaning extends far beyond that simple definition. It's the unseen influence that shapes our emotions, thoughts, and sense of well-being. Now I want you to take a second to look at this image. And while you're looking at it, I want you to pause and really consider, what makes this space feel so welcoming? Did you notice the way that the sunlight pours through the windows, plants bring life into the corners, and the space is filled with calming, earthy tones that feel both warm and intentional? That's one of the many forms of good interior design. Now let's talk about biophilia. So what is biophilia? It's the human necessity to be near or connected to other forms of life, or an impulse to be around the natural environment. One of the most important aspects of interior design is incorporating biophilic elements. These elements can include plants, wood, and natural lighting, which are all shown to have positive impacts on mental well-being. In a report released by the National Library of Medicine, they studied the mental health outcomes of green spaces. The paper reviewed 952 different studies. Of those, only 39 met the inclusion requirements, which truly shows just how selective this study was. The study implemented natural elements such as indoor plants, natural lighting, and components of biophilic design into a space to see if there were positive effects on the participants. In order to measure the mental health outcomes and effects, they used 7 different notable scales, which are going to be the Profile of Mood States scale, which is self-reported with questions about 6 different mood states, the Warwick-Eidenberg Mental Wellbeing Scale, which measures positive mental well-being, the General Health Questionnaire, which screens for psychiatric disorders, the Depression, Anxiety, and Stress Scale, which is a self-reporting measure of depression, anxiety, and stress, the Positive and Negative Effect Schedule, which measures positive and negative effects using emotional descriptions, the Kessler Psychological Distress Scale, which calculates psychological distress, and finally, the State Trait Anxiety Inventory, which differentiates between temporary and long-term anxiety. Mental health outcomes improved across 98% of studies, while physical health outcomes showed improvement across 83%, and cognitive health across 75% of studies. This truly shows just how impactful something as simple as a plant on your windowsill can be. It isn't just pretty, it also has a substantial effect on your mental well-being. Another study supporting this claim about natural elements, again, researched the effects of implementing nature into a space's design. They reviewed 49 different studies and found that nature has a significant positive effect on emotions. This is shown in the results where the D value is equal to 0.86. The D value is a way of measuring how big the difference between two groups is, and a D value of 0.86 is considered to be a large effect size, indicating the substantial improvement in mental well-being that occurred when natural elements were introduced to a space. As well as a D value of negative 0.67, which is a medium to large effect size and shows a decrease in positive emotions when an environment lacks green space. All of the information that this study presented not only confirmed the general benefits of nature, but it also showed the specific positive impacts that nature has on indoor spaces where people spend a large majority of their time. On the other hand, color psychology, while equally as important as other design elements, has the possibility of introducing both positive and negative associations. This is because colors are not just for visual appeal. They also have psychological meanings. They can evoke subjective emotional responses. While colors such as greens and blues are typically viewed as having calming effects, negative reactions can be triggered depending on personal experiences and societal correlations. These personal experiences can be described as color memory, or the way our past experiences imprint emotional meanings onto certain colors. While there is no specific data or statistics to back this up, many professionals in the field claim that there's a strong emotional association with specific colors due to past encounters with those specific colors. Additionally, color memory is not the only reason people associate colors with emotions. While society has innately assigned specific emotions with corresponding colors, like sadness with blue and red with anger, there are other underlying associations that individuals can cultivate to give colors different meanings. For example, to some, yellow can represent happiness, as that's how it has been taught to them. As for others, yellow can still the feelings of cowardness or embarrassment. That's where we get the term yellow-bellied. Because people often rely on metaphors to understand difficult concepts, including colors conveying emotional meanings, socially, these metaphors can be shaped in a way that leads to misinterpretations. Such misinterpretations will cause unease if a space contains colors that induce a strong emotional response. That's why it's very important when you're looking at it from the perspective of an interior designer, as it is a huge necessity for them to communicate with their clients to find what emotions they correlate with certain colors. This can allow the designer to create a space for their customer that will allow them to both mentally and physically flourish. One of the most prominent and instinctive ways humans learn and process information is through visuals. From a young age, we begin to form connections between what we see and how we feel. In today's society, a majority of people have watched films or other forms of media. In order to set a mood, directors will use color association to convey emotions. In a sorrowful scene, we see sets of storm clouds or rain. Blues and grays are in the background of our grieving characters. As we perceive this, our brain picks up on these associations and forms connections between what we are feeling and seeing, meaning that combinations of colors must be done strategically. While blue and gray complement each other beautifully, we do not want a scene of despair within our homes. As we look behind the scenes of film sets, we can see that sets are a form of interior design. This is clear because many sets are modeled after homes. The connection between cinema and interior design reminds us that the environments we live in are not just simply a space to be. They shape our emotions, influence our behavior, and leave lasting impressions on our mental state. Now, let's change directions towards how the aesthetics of a space can impact mental well-being. How many of you feel stressed out when your space is messy? Well, there's a reason for that. While it may seem insignificant, the layout of a space has an immense effect on mental well-being. When people are placed into a room that has an awkward layout or furniture too close together, they tend to describe it as claustrophobic or uncomfortable. In these situations, it's common for people to not thrive in their environment. That's why it's essential for indoor spaces to be as comfortable and inviting as possible. The idea of a home's impact on mental well-being is further supported by the idea that people are also socialized by their living spaces. How we live affects our thinking, our social and ethical behavior, and sets our moods. In order to justify this claim, researchers conducted interviews and observed residents. They discovered that bad design elements in most cases cause stress and discomfort. On the other hand, when a space is well designed and thoughtfully planned out, the inhabitant had a much more positive sense of their emotional well-being. This further emphasizes how environments not only impact physical comfort, but also thoughts, behaviors, and emotional states. In addition to layout, minimalism also has a profound impact on an individual's mental well-being. Minimalism is described as simplicity, a less is more ideation that was first adopted by Japanese culture in the 1950s. The importance of a minimalistic design became notably more prevalent during the times of COVID-19. This is because people became dependent on the items they already owned and could not go out and buy new things. Minimalism has overwhelmingly positive effects on mental well-being because the idea works to encourage people to stop valuing material objects and rather value memories or experiences. Further proving this claim, a study about the effects of minimalism surveyed 1,268 people in order to find the connection between minimalism, materialism, and mental well-being. The findings from the study showed that minimalism had positive correlations with life satisfaction, where the R value is equal to 0.34. The R value is a way of measuring the relationship between two variables, and an R value of 0.34 indicates a roughly 10% increase, which may not sound like a lot, but given how large the sample size is, this number is extremely substantial. Also, correlations between minimalism and happiness, where R equals 0.40, or about a 16% increase, as well as showing a negative correlation between materialism and mental well-being, showing an R value of negative 0.44, meaning that there is a negative response to materialism. These numbers show that those who embrace minimalism and minimalist values typically feel more satisfied in their daily lives and place less importance on material objects. This concept of minimalism is described as an emphasis on the value of experiences. It prioritizes the remembrance of meaningful moments over material possessions. With a minimalistic approach to interior design, there can be a newfound sense of joy and fulfillment. The suggestion is that when people embrace this ideation, they begin to place their values in their memories. This can cause people to live more in the moment so that they have more to live by, which will make their experiences rich and meaningful. By lessening the emphasis on obtaining objects, there is a relief from stress that can often be caused by clutter. However, when people fail to embrace minimalism, their space may become filled with clutter. It becomes a never-ending loop where you feel the way your space looks, and your space will mirror how you feel. The connection between minimalism and this cycle is strong because people tend to have a much easier time breaking it when minimalism is introduced. This idea aligns with the idea that environmental factors such as color, lighting, and furniture can deeply affect mood, stress levels, and overall happiness. Based on this research, it's clear that there's a strong correlation between different aspects of interior design and how the mental health of individuals is affected. There is great importance that lies in improving mental well-being, and a very simple yet impactful way to do that is by improving the home. Such change will be extremely significant given the space's impact on the brain. Moving forward, when intentionally designing housing, the purpose needs to be to work towards improving mental well-being. With that in mind, there needs to be a shift in focus. Rather than making a space that's cheap, the focus needs to be on improving or maintaining good mental well-being for the inhabitants. Going forward, it is essential for interior designers and even architects to accept the constant, crucial implications of how mental health is influenced by housing, and in a broader sense, any environmental space. By incorporating elements such as green space, a thoughtful color scheme, and clean, aesthetically pleasing layouts, environments that improve mental well-being can be created. Finally, understanding the relationship between interior design and mental health is a critical step toward creating environments that support mental well-being of all individuals. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.